So hi everyone, this week I asked you to compare a piece of Greek art and a piece of Roman art. So I have two examples up here for you. Obviously here we have Greek and here we have Roman. Okay, so the Greek piece, this is a marble portrait head of Alexander the Great. The head was cut to fit into a separate made body, which I kind of find interesting that the sculpture was made into these various sections and then fit together. It is Hellenistic in style, and if you remember, that is the very last of the Greek styles that we looked at, and was made in the 2nd century BC to the 1st century BC, and it was found in Alexandria, which is in Egypt. This is a marble portrait of Marcus Aurelius, and it was made after 169 AD. This portrait of the ruler philosopher vividly conveys the emperor's cast of mind. The broad face, framed by a beard and straggly hair, is reminiscent of the portraits of Greek philosophers of 500 years earlier. And you could think of him looking something like Plato or Aristotle or Socrates or something like that. So let's look at these now just for what they are, regardless of this little bit of history here. We have what we say is a bust, which is the head, and here just a little of the neck. Sometimes it's lower into the shoulders. We have two images made out of marble, and at one point they were most likely painted, but at their current state they're not painted and they're white. This one is much smoother looking than this one, so this has a rougher kind of texture to it. And they're white, but they also both have kind of this brownish, pinkish hue in some places. And of course, when they were painted, then they would have had painted eyeballs and, pupils and stuff, eyebrows and everything. They were both great leaders that were in power at one point in their individual empires. They both have kind of this wavy, curly hair that is shown, and he is much older looking. Marcus Aurelius is much older looking than Alexander the Great here, who is much younger looking, and we can assume that when Alexander the Great, when he was expanding the empire into Egypt and stuff, he probably was older than what is shown here, because to me here he looks like a teenager, 19, maybe even 20 at the oldest, where Marcus Aurelius looks much older because he's got some wrinkles on his forehead. He has the beard and the mustache, the facial hair. He has a little bit of sunken cheeks here, where we have in Alexander, we have, the full kind of baby cheeks, no facial hair. He looks straightforward. His head is not turned, where this is more of a 3/4 portrait. I don't have the sizes here, so we don't know if these are a similar size or not, even though I've made them to be the same size shown here. We can't make that assumption. They are both done to be very naturalistic looking, and this is from the Hellenistic time period. So we can assume that Alexander did look something like this, because this is our time period when we're making, when the Greeks are making people to look very realistic, where the same holds true here. We know that the Romans liked that the Greeks made their portraits to be very realistic, and they copied that style. So maybe Alexander was looking this young when he conquered Egypt. I'm not sure, but to me he looks quite young here. They're both fairly attractive, they're not like hideously ugly, very both symmetrical in the way that they are carved in the marble. If you were to divide the head in half this way, the two halves look symmetrical, and we can say the same with the portrait of Alexander. So we begin to see some of these very simple things that I said to look at, like texture, color, size. I gave these to you last week or the very beginning of this past week, and I asked you to please look at those Getty PDF files and to incorporate some of these terms into your posts. And a few of you did that, but I'm still getting these very general posts, or some of you are still putting up posts that are way too short. So please remember, to get full credit must be at least 50 words or more in your posts. So please make sure you're just, like I just did, just incorporate some of the words into it. You were able to pull images off of the internet for this discussion board. So you could have even added things like this that you pulled off of a website and then added to them. We just need you to write, a little bit of history, and then, or I need you to write a little bit of history, and then a couple of observations to get a really good discussion going. Now, I would say that this week's discussion was a lot better than previous ones, but we can still make it better. So I ask that you please use some of those terms in your description. And I'm trying to get you ready for your upcoming research paper, because in your research paper you have to compare and contrast two images, and also in your essay questions, like the essay you just did for the first test, you're comparing things. So this is why we're doing these discussion boards, to get you ready for that. So these are practices that you can do and have your classmates read them and say, do they understand them or don't they understand them? And then I can come through and look through them too and give you help and pointers as well. So please make sure you take these discussion boards seriously. Do them, think about them, find good images, and as always, if you need help, just reach out to me. Okay? Have a good week, and I will talk to you soon.